preparing us for a fake alien invasion. That's always been the plan. A one-world government. The only way to do it is to get us to embrace it. And the only way to embrace it is from an alien attack. Ronald Reagan talked about it many times and said, wouldn't it make our lives easier if we just had some extraterrestrial threat? He said that shit. He said that in front of the UN.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
When people ask me, why would they fake space? It's always been about a fake alien attack. You can't have a fake alien attack without space. You know who promoted space more than anybody? Nazis.
Russians.
But before the Nazis, the Vatican. The most powerful telescope, the Vatican. And you know what name it is? Lucifer.
Lucifer's dick balls.
When people ask me, why would they fake all is all programming. What's above us and what we're on, we're being lied to. Once you go flat, you never go back.
One of the first ever alien abduction cases was a black man and his wife. I am friends with Barney Hill's granddaughter. She fights in the UFC, Angela Hill. She fights. Yeah.
I've watched her fight.
Yeah. And when she was on the podcast, she didn't even tell me till the podcast was over. She goes, oh, I forgot to tell you, my grandfather is Barney Hill. And I was like, what? And I was like, next podcast. It was the first ever, like, widely publicized abduction story. They were driving down a road and there was some light above the car, and then they woke up hours later. I think that's the story. And they had to remember what happened. Like their brains were somehow scrambled. Separately, they both had the exact same vision of what it was. Now, people are super skeptical about this, and the story was that they were taken aboard this spacecraft. And it was one of the very first stories about these kind of creatures, these small, kind of frail creatures.
So in Russia, they had this policy at first to engage these things, and they lost pilots.
Yeah, they had 40 different incidents during that study where Russian warplanes chased UFOs. 3 of those cases, the UFOs turned around and shot them down. They disabled the planes and the planes crashed. 2 of those pilots died. And after the 3rd crash, the Russian Ministry of Defense put out the order, leave them alone. They may have, quote, incredible capacities for retaliation, so leave them alone. I met this Russian scientist who had worked on their version of Star Wars. He lived in one of these secret cities. He'd never spoken to any journalist, let alone a Western journalist, and he started telling us about the work that they were doing. They had satellites up there that were seeing these things coming in and out of space into Earth's atmosphere and going out. He said, I know that you guys had those satellites. You were seeing the same stuff we were. Their intelligence agents got information from the U.S. They knew we were collecting information back then. They know we're collecting it now.
Do you think you're going to see it in your lifetime?
Bigfoot or aliens?
Aliens. Like, you know, where it's like, oh, like we have to like talk to them now. We have to like interact with them.
There's video that is impossible to ignore. There's some things that are impossible to ignore. And then there's eyewitness testimonies of people who are rock solid, totally dependable, like fighter pilots who have seen some things. Like the best example is this guy, Commander David Fravor, who was off the coast of San Diego in 2004. And this is corroborated by multiple points of data. They had this tracking system that tracks things above Earth's atmosphere, and they found this thing went from above 60,000 feet above sea level to 50 feet above sea level in less than a second. They have no idea how it's doing this. They have no idea. There's no method of propulsion that's visible. They followed this thing. They locked onto it. It blocked their radar. It blocked their tracking systems, rather. And then it jetted off at an impossible rate of speed. And then the Nimitz relocated this thing at their cat point. The cat point is where the fighter pilots, when they're doing this test, they're doing this exercise, they were supposed to meet at this very specific point. And that's where this thing had gone. Like this thing had read their manifest and knew, like, or read their plans and knew where they were going.
What's wild?
That is way more compelling to me than Bigfoot. The Bigfoot thing is just fun, but the alien thing is fun and likely. There's something going on. And so I go back and forth. Sometimes I think maybe it's some sort of government drone that's like so sophisticated and it's totally top secret. And if we ever go to war with China, that's when they're going to break it out. And then sometimes I think what they are is something that's monitoring us and making sure we don't blow ourselves up.
Where is
Canada's
that?
former defense minister claims that aliens are real. Apparently, there is a humanoid-esque race of aliens called the Tall Whites living among us. Huh. It's Adam Curry.
What publication is
It's Adam
this?
Curry.
Is this Vice?
Adam Curry's alien. That brings me back to the aliens. If there is anything that's going to wake people the fuck up, is if all these people that are coming forward, all these people that are talking about us having retrieved alien crafts, he's saying they do have that, and they are in possession of that, and then they're lying to Congress. They're not showing Congress this, and they're not showing the American people this. But if they did, if we knew, the Ronald Reagan speech to the United Nations, did you ever hear that speech?
Yeah, sure.
It's an amazing speech. Because it made all the people, the UFO dorks, go, yes!
Right.
It's real!
If we were facing an alien threat from outside this world, how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish.
The press conference from 1969 when they returned from the moon is one of the most cryptic, weird things you'll ever see. These guys look like they just stole something and they're being questioned. They're like fidgety and looking nervous, like they're getting away with something.
So they didn't do it then?
They might have done it. They might have been forced to say some things that they didn't want to say, and that could be part of it.
Absolutely.
You know, they could have done it, but there's a lot of weirdness with the moon landing.
Mm-hmm.
It's if you wanted to have like a conspiracy that to wrap your head around that's exciting, it's one of the best ones.
Really, but who benefits from it?
The United States government did because it showed military superiority over the Russians, so we were able to do that.
Sure.
It also, you know, it was the Nixon administration. People were just flat out full of shit.
Well, yeah.
I mean, they were just lying to people left and right back then.
That's government, though.
Yeah, but even more so then because it was unchecked. There was no media.
Social media.
Yeah, there's nothing that would expose them for this. And this stuff, they would air it on TV once in 1969. You would never see it again unless you watched it on film. There's no YouTube where you can go back and watch the astronauts on trampolines video. That's my favorite one. You watch that and you go, what in the fuck is happening there? These guys are bouncing up in the air. Like, how are they doing that? Something that came down here from another planet and was so unbelievably sophisticated that it could travel through vast distances in space and had insurmountable, impossible technology, that we would look to it for all of our answers. It would become our new daddy. It would completely disrupt all of our governments. It would disrupt all of our religions. It would disrupt every single belief system we have. And people would fall apart. UFO landing is fact, not fantasy, the Russians insist. This is from 1989, the New York Times. Wow.
Read the beginning of this.
Residents of the city of Voronezh insisted today that lanky, three-eyed extraterrestrial creatures had indeed landed in a local park and gone for a stroll. It was not an optical illusion, said Lieutenant Sergei Matviev of the district police station, who said in a telephone interview that he saw the landing of the UFO on September 27th.
What?
A three-eyed creature about 9 feet tall and fashionably dressed in silvery overalls and bronze boots with a disc on its chest, disappeared, then landed and came out for a promenade with a companion and a robot. The aliens seemed to communicate with each other, producing the mysterious appearance of a shiny triangle, and activated the robot with a touch. Huh.
The whole thing is very strange.
A lot of people worried about AI are like, we need to shut it down before it like causes problems. Before it, like wake up, hates us and wants to kill us. The thing we should have shut down from the very beginning was radio.
Radio.
Right, because we've been like broadcasting radio waves for the last 100, 120 years, and the radio waves don't stop once they leave Earth's atmosphere. They keep going. We now have radio waves of human activity that have radiated out 120 light years.
Is that bad?
Well, depends. Are there hostile aliens within 120 light years?
There was some paperwork that indicated that this was from the Zeta Reticuli star system. It's about 30 some odd light years away.
A 40-foot long tic tac, poof, in a matter of seconds it's gone. They're starting to take it serious. There are other events that are not out.
Not only is it possible, I think that kind of stuff would be kept a secret. We might not be seeing the alien civilizations until they're already here. So right now we don't see much in the sky. One day we wake up and it's just like everywhere, and they're here.
If the bottom line is they live here, they've always lived here. Maybe they're separated by some kind of a dimensional membrane or something. They can come in and out of our lives. They can watch us when we're sleeping, when we're taking a shower, when we're in the bathroom. They can see us and enter our lives, and we can't do anything about it. People could freak out about that. What if they are us from the future, which has been explored a lot? That maybe we fucked up the planet so bad that we end up looking like little gray aliens sometime in the distant future, and they're coming back to check us out to see the point of where things went wrong. That could be disturbing to a lot of people.
You know, where they're watching how we react to things? Hypothetically, I have no idea. But they've just been here so long, though. It's like, how many times do you need to send drones to map the moon? One time.
Right. The disturbing thing is that the little gray aliens are some sort of cyborg.
Right.
And then they're genderless. And it seems like they communicate without mouth noises. They just have a little slit for a mouth. You used to work at Area 51. How do they approach you?
I put a jet engine in my Honda, and Los Alamos put it on the front page of the paper. Built this 200-mile-an-hour Honda jet car that I drove to work every day. So I was known in Los Alamos as the guy with the weird car, and you could hear it from a mile away.
And did this seem attractive to you, or did it seem weird?
No, it really wasn't weird, because that's typically how things go.
I want to talk about human-animal hybrids and humanoids. Because, Joe, why has it got to be a humanoid?
Why?
Because if you make it a few percentage points another animal or another creature, it's a gray area. There's no human rights. You have an animal rights movement. You have a human rights movement. There's no alien movement. Right. Aliens are real. They're creating human-animal hybrids that are a new creature, never here on Earth. It's alien. So the aliens are already here. AI is alien. The chimeras are alien. Aliens are already here.
So you're saying they're making these human-animal hybrids so they can, harvest tissue from them?
That's just level 1.
What's level 2? What's level 8?
Because I'll tell you, for the best of my knowledge, a lot of people think, it's human harvesting of Falun Gong or these Buddhists really healthy. That's big, that's going on, because they still have a better non-rejection rate. But with the chimeras, I remember 22 years ago reading a BBC article that was kind of testing the waters. They occasionally test it. And they go, about 15 years ago, the first animal-human chimeras were made in test tubes. They were not brought to term, but some scientists want to implant them in utero in cows, because obviously that's a bigger uterus. You can grow up a bigger humanoid and get more tissue. And so then I went, I better go research that. So I went to UT Library at that time. You could get some on the internet, like 1996. And I went and actually pulled up all these MIT reports, and I took them to my dad and other people who's a doctor. And they go, yeah, that's really crazy. And it was all about how we've got to prepare the public for this, because we're going to be able to download their memories and then put it in a new body. This is before Blade Runner. So see, it's not like this is the world's not imitating Blade Runner. Blade Runner is a preparation.
And this is where the missing 411 come from, which is all these people have mysteriously disappeared in force. And it's all really weird because they all have a lot of similar characteristics. German backgrounds, highly intelligent, and I don't know how weird you want to get, bro.
I want to get weird.
Okay, bro. They think this might be some time traveling Nazi shit, bro. I know you're gonna think I'm crazy, but it's true, dude. So the area of Antarctica they went to was New Schwabenland.
Do you think that's why he dresses with the space?
100%.
So they're all in contact with the aliens.
Yeah.
Where do you think they got these UFOs from? Like, how are they getting these?
Yeah, I get different answers, man. My experience tells me that they're getting them from what you'd call crashes, right? Which is like hard to fathom that something that advanced could crash.
Right.
Now, other people think maybe there was some from an archaeological dig.
That's what Bob said.
I was surprised he talked about that.
Yeah, he said that there was one that they had spoken about at S4 that they said that they had recovered from an archaeological dig, and they said it was a long time ago and it's really old. None of them like were a gift.
That's the other kind of, I'd say, theory. They must have left it for us. Some people believe that, but how do we know? I mean,
That sounds so hokey.
The whole fucking thing is extraordinarily bizarre. It doesn't mean it's not true, though.
Right. That's the other thing that Bob said that I thought was really fascinating, was that there was some documentation that they were showing him that claimed that we are the product of accelerated evolution.
If there are aliens in outer space, and I think there are, it means that they also have perfected quantum computers, and they can do calculations that are far beyond anything that we can calculate with. Like, for example, a wormhole. A wormhole in principle is a gateway between two distant points in space and time, which allows you to break the Einstein barrier and go faster than the speed of light. But the calculations are horrendous. It may take a quantum computer to sort through what happens when you go through a wormhole and wind up on the other side of the universe, and the aliens probably already have done that.
When they dropped Fat Man and Little Boy on Japan, that's when UFO sightings started happening all over the globe. There's a giant uptick in UFO sightings. They started seeing them all over the place. Like there was encounters in Washington, D.C., and there was encounters over nuclear bases where they said that they had shut codes down. Was it Kenneth Arnold was one of the first, I believe? Was the guy that spotted the flying saucers. He was the first one to discuss them as saucer-shaped discs. I don't know if there is alien life out there that's aware of us. I don't know if they would intervene, because we don't really do much when we find chimps. Well, the intelligent scientific community doesn't try to interfere with their life and give them guns and like, this is how you start a fire.
Right.
Somewhere out there, there's another civilization that may be even more advanced than us.
If civilizations are common, or even slightly common, then there should be civilizations ahead of us.
Yes.
Because there's been so much time. The galaxy is pretty much as old as the universe. It's 13 billion years worth of time. You imagine the timescales. We've been around, say, 40,000 years, and we've had science for 500 years at most. Let's say since Newton or Copernicus. And look what we've done. We've walked on the moon. We're about to go to Mars. We've done that in 500 years. So imagine a million years in the future. So the idea that there are no civilizations arose, 100 million years ago, 200 million years ago, 1 billion years ago. And imagine what they'd be like if they'd survived.
When they detonated the bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that's when UFOs started coming. And all the UFO activity ramped up substantially. And
why do you think that is?
Because I think they realize we have nukes. Like, these crazy motherfuckers and just wipe out whole cities with nukes. These fucking assholes, they had to come down and go, whoa, 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 what are you doing, man? And I think if we did something fucking dangerous, like nuclear bombs, then they would go, whoa, okay. Because I think if alien societies do exist, and intelligent life is out there in the universe, I think what happens is they keep getting more and more and more and more sophisticated, and in the beginning they engage in tribal warfare, and as they become more and more sophisticated, their technology becomes far too dangerous to keep doing that same shit. And that's when they observe them, because it's this perilous tipping point where we could completely wipe out life on Earth.
This falls into another one of these conspiracy theories that the goal of the globalists is that in order to get access to alien tech, we have to be a unified planet. Aliens aren't going to give...
What?
Aliens...
Really? You've heard that one?
Oh, yeah, it's all over the internet.
That's why they're doing this?
So...
They're going with a one world order in order to get alien tech?
Do you think the Galactic Federation is going to let a planet in which has got numerous governing bodies and nuclear weapons?
I don't think there's a Galactic Federation.
I'm just kidding, right? The point I'm making is there are people online who believe this. They believe that if there is some kind of Galactic Federation, or at least some kind of recognizable, different cultures that have some kind of set rule base,
right?
Who do they negotiate with? Us, Russia, or China? And so the argument, one of the theories is that interests on the United States who have access to the aliens know that they have to do everything in their power to unify the entire planet under one authority so that we can be entered into whatever alien, access would exist. But so long as we are nuclear-powered competing territorial factions, they can't do it.
Tell people your credentials, what your background is.
Sure. So, my name is Ryan Graves. I have an engineering degree, mechanical and aerospace engineering. I promptly left doing that to go fly F-18s for the Navy as soon as I graduated college. Did that for about a decade, both operationally in combat as well as in an instructor role, teaching the new students. And, we did witness something while we were flying in our jets, because we would see them being flat, too. We'd see them perfectly stationary up there, regardless of the wind.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wow. So what kind of wind are you talking about?
Oh, gosh. I mean, at altitude, you can have anywhere up to 100, 120 knots of airspeed.
What is that in miles per hour?
It's about 130, 140 miles an hour.
So they're completely stationary with a 140-mile-an-hour wind?
Correct.
How long would these things stay up there for?
So from my experience, from our experience, and again, we weren't studying these, but they were always out there. They were out there when we took off, we'd see them, and then we'd go to land, they would still be out there.
Like every day?
Every day.
Every day?
Every day.
High jump, man. It's not they're coming from space. It's that, they're somewhere in Antarctica. There's, some kind of something in there, and that we discovered it.
I'm in.
And they were like, hey, yeah, you can't fuck with us. You can't come here anymore. Don't come here anymore.
It's a John Carpenter movie.
Yeah, man. It's like the thing, there's a civilization out there. And there's treaties with a lot of the world powers, and the treaties are with the people who can make it there. Because, your average person isn't going to Antarctica.
I get occasionally called by somebody from inside. What I think they're doing, first of all, one, we may be faking a UFO situation for reasons that I don't understand.
If we are faking a UFO situation, do you think that there's technology that's available to people in the United States that is beyond our current understanding of what's possible?
90% no.
90% no.
Because it's very hard. It's very hard to imagine physicists continuing to work on nothing for their entire careers. The number of people who are going to be retiring shortly, having never actually done physics as a physicist. We're talking about wasted lives. People are going to be very weird when they realize that they blew their entire career.
What did the Pentagon just say?
Yeah,
literally two fucking days ago.
They've recovered crafts that are not from this world, not made on Earth.
Not made on Earth.
Yeah, not made on Earth. They're basically saying we don't know what the fuck it is, but we didn't make it. That's bananas. And I think that's going to lead to more and more information coming out about it, where we're going to try to get a sense of understanding, how long have they known this? How much of all that Roswell, New Mexico shit was true? Tell us what was going on.
There's an island in the Andaman chain called North Sentinel Island.
The 39 people that are direct descendants of people left Africa 60,000 years ago.
We don't know if there's 39 or 300. They kill everybody who lands there, essentially. Yeah. An English person buggered them, which is why they don't want anyone landing.
Yeah.
There actually are some very weird videos where we throw them coconuts because coconuts don't occur in their island, and we actually have non-hostile contact. But the most important part of it is India. They do not know that they are claimed by something called India. And they don't know that they have a Fermi problem because India won't let anyone land unless they break the law. So the great filter of North Sentinel Island is a model for why don't we see anybody? Does India exist at some sort of UFO level?
Aliens of the future created a supercomputer to calculate the theory of everything, the ultimate theory. So the computer chugged and spit out the answer. And the answer was, the meaning of the universe was 42. So I would hope that our quantum computer computing on string theory, I hope would not give us the number 42 as the meaning of reality.
Do you think that it is possible that aliens came down and manipulated the genetics of lower primates and created people?
I'm willing to accept that that's a possibility. If we're experimenting on animals and things, the possibility that something made it here and something happened exists. Absolutely. I think it's very arrogant as a human being to think that it's just us, right?
If we could go to another planet that we knew had life, if we found some lower primates, that we would manipulate them.
What's crazy, if you look into Nation of Islam philosophy, they have a UFO type philosophy. Something here, and by their mind, the scientists created the different races. But something could have come here, and then we set upon evolution. Or that just could be, me stoned, having watched too many sci-fi movies, but it's possible.
Northern New Jersey is the #1 place in the country where they have the most UFO sightings. They say that people go on their balcony, they're drinking coffee, they're talking on the phone, and they'll see a little flying saucer go by. But I know for a fact that in 1975, a UFO landed in Hudson County Park. I was a kid, and the next day the feds locked off the park. They had yellow tape, they had samples. It's not just one guy, it's people who got knocked on the door and said, did you see anything at 11, 10 at night? And they said, you know what? There were lights flashing outside. They contacted police departments to see if there was any. They went full. Then the FBI came in, circled the park. You'd think it was Area 51.
For the first time in 25 years, I'm going to report on these guys. And I did. And it's in the movie. You can hear the mother talking about it, and she's so emotional. And the mother came back to the location right after it happened. The smell, that stench, and the footprint on the ground. I mean, everybody talks about that stench. That it was so... They said, if you ever take like a skunk, multiply that by like 100,000, that would give you some indication of the level of like how putrid and nasty. It was paralyzing. And it stayed in the areas, like at the hospitals when they did the x-rays, and everybody talks about it. That stench there, it's unbelievable. Like it fills your navel cavities and doesn't leave for a week. It was incredible. And then they all said the same thing.
And they couldn't get it out.
They couldn't get it out. Yeah, they sanitized the hospital. The guy said that he had to close off that wing of the hospital while they were sanitizing it because it was so intense. The military officer, the guy that drove the creature around, I was sitting across from him. You can't see his face, but I did. And I'm looking at this guy in the eyes. I'm thinking, I could be looking at a guy that drove a alien around. You have no idea, dude. You have no idea.
How did he describe it?
So when I came back from that trip, people were like, how was your trip to Brazil? What was it like, man? They got great, smoothies and coffee. And I'm just like, you guys have no idea. I think an alien spaceship crashed and they recovered live aliens. And we made contact and the Americans came in. That's what I'm thinking about. So I told a couple people. On the last trip I came back, I was just like, I was so rocked. I couldn't reintegrate back into the culture. I was just like, I think this happened. It's the biggest story ever. So people were asking me. Everyone's out there speculating, is it real? Is it fake? Is it real? Is it fake? And this guy drove a body around. Just think about that for a second. Think about the doctor who took the x-rays.
Like the Fermi paradox of like, where are the aliens?
Yeah.
So, where are the aliens? I think it was Carl Sagan that said, like, there either are a lot of aliens or none, and they're equally terrifying. If there are a lot of aliens, well, like an alien civilization might just view us as like a bug infestation.
Right.
It's like, hey, we left that planet, was fine. Now it's got a bunch of bugs. Just go fumigate it. Like we'd fumigate a house, and then. But if there are no aliens, well, could it be that all civilizations are just destroyed before they become interstellar? So they're equally terrifying.
I was at this lecture, and there were 300 abductees there. That some who he'd interviewed with, some he had not, but who were there for interested to find out more about their experience. And one guy got up and said he had one arm, and I don't know whether that was related. I don't think it was related to the experience, but he said, I'm a Wall Street broker. I'm quite well off. I have a sailboat. I was in Long Island Sound a few years ago, and a blue light hit me, and I had missing time of about 5 or 6 hours. But in it, I have filtrated memories of beings addressing me and telling me that I was powerful and influential and I could help the planet survive. And they put me back in my ship, and I woke up, and he said, I'm waiting for them to come back. I want them to come back.
Those people were doing is unexplainable even today. The Great Pyramid of Giza has 2,000,000 300,000 stones in it. They weigh between 2 and 80 tons. Some of them are caught from a quarry that's hundreds of miles away. These things point, that pyramid is shaped perfectly. Like, if you fucked up like a quarter inch there, a half inch here, by the time you get to the top, that thing's a mess. But meanwhile, it's not. It's perfect. It's also perfectly aligned to true north, south, east, and west. And they're not really sure how old it is. I think it's dated to 2500 BC. That's just because of organic particles that they pulled from inside stones. But they also say that they probably could have sealed those stones and resealed those stones over time. So if there was a civilization, and let's assume there was, that was thousands of years old in Egypt, that was capable of doing things that we're not capable of doing today, what kind of technology were they working with?
That's what I'm saying.
We really don't know.
I don't have a dick because we don't fuck with genitals. We were mind fuckers. Because everyone's like, oh, I'm gonna have a spiritual experience. Like, and it is spiritual, but it's a long trip. So it goes through like hell, heaven, jokes. And he goes, I came down to earth and I fucked your great, 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 great grandmother. And I don't have a dick because we don't fuck with genitals. We were mind fuckers. We use our mind. That's how we have sex. And so we're beyond that. And he goes, look in the mirror, bitch. And I go, what? You ever wonder why Koreans have such big heads and your eyes are a little bit like this and your dicks are a little bit smaller? Because we didn't have any dicks. Humans had dicks. We melted, and so you have little dicks. And he's like, you never ever thought about why you're blue? I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, you never wonder why you were born with a blue ass? They call it the Genghis Khan birthmark. Do you know this?
No.
So a lot of Asians are born with a giant blue birthmark on their ass.
Really?
Yeah, and they say it's all the way back from something Genghis Khan did.
Mr.
The Mongolian blue spot.
Wow.
So I was born with a blue ass, Joe.
If you went back to the 1400s and then you went from 1400 to 1500, you're not going to see that much of a difference technologically.
Right.
If you think about the laws of technological progression, you've got to think that if this civilization is who knows how many years more advanced than we are, if you go from 2000 to 3000, I assume there's going to be a radical change.
Look, everyone doesn't necessarily start at a steam engine and go to an internal combustion engine and then, electric power, nuclear power, and go up the ladder that we come on. The binary, if the stuff is true about the origin and the binary star system, and they have heavier elements that we don't have, and this stable element 115 is a naturally occurring material, maybe that's the first thing they started experimenting with. And the version of their steam engine, their first product, was something that operated like this. Came to Earth to look around. They were amazed at the stuff we were doing. These guys burned stuff and squirted out the back to go forward. Well, who says they follow any kind of normal progression like that? The first inkling I had was facility that is at S4. Normally, we had pulled in with the bus and gone around the front through a normal double door. This time that I went in, there were hangar doors open. I went in through the hangar door, and in the hangar door was the disc, the flying saucer that I worked on. I saw it sitting there, and we walked by it. It had a little American flag stuck on the side, and I thought, oh my God, this finally explains all the flying saucer stories. This is just an advanced fighter. I went by, I slid my hand alongside it. I got reprimanded immediately for touching the thing. There was a guy, an armed guard, that followed us in and just said, keep your eyes forward and your hands at your side and just walk in the door. That was the first time I had seen anything that was weird.
If you go to the country, go camping, you fucking freak out. You're like, wow. You see the stars, you're like, this is fucking nuts, man. You can see them all. We decided to shut off the greatest art the world has ever known because we want to be able to see better at night through light pollution. It makes you think like, oh, our ancestors saw this fucking freaky shit all the time. Every night people were humbled and reminded of the majesty of the universe when they looked up and saw the infinite skies on a clear night.
Yeah.
And you could literally see the whole Milky Way. You could see the whole thing. We forget about it all the time. It's one of the most important things about our existence here is that we're a part of the universe. It changes how you feel about life, and it doesn't get brought up, and one of the reasons is because we don't see it. There's definitely calculated news releases and leaks that they put out to distract us from other complicated things that are also going on simultaneously. The fascinating thing about the UFO thing is because if this had happened in like the 1980s, it would be front page of every newspaper. Everyone would be talking about it at work. Like, oh my God. They had congressional hearings where they said we've recovered multiple crashed vehicles from other planets. We have alien biological entities that are in freezers. How did they turn it on?
The reactor can be turned on or turned off in a lot of different ways. The way Barry showed me it, the hemisphere is removed. There's a small tower in the middle. When you put the hemisphere on, the reactor activates. The reactor shuts down. It's load sensing. So if there's no load on the reactor at all, it shuts down. When there's a load present on it, it starts up again.
Load meaning?
You can consider it an electrical load. Although it doesn't necessarily operate electrically. There's no wiring that connects any of the subcomponents together whatsoever. They just have to be in the immediate vicinity. The stuff is borderline magic.
They're like, you killed him, you buried him, we're all going to go find him. So they start this intensive manhunt. I don't know how many days it goes on for, but days. Travis, 6 days later, reappears. He's on the outskirts of town. He's not where he was picked up. He's on the outskirts of town. This is something that intrigued me and puzzles me. If they had dropped Travis off, and I've been there twice, we're talking the middle of nowhere. They would have dropped Travis off where they picked him up, he would have died. He would have never made it back alive.
Why?
It's too far. It's the middle of nowhere, freezing cold. Area that was like kind of down in a valley, came down, and the first thing that he remembers, he woke up, he was on the ground, and he looked up and saw the craft taking off above him. It was right near a phone booth, and he makes the call, and all the rest is history. But I always thought to myself, they cared about his well-being. Maybe it wasn't an abduction. Maybe he got exposed to the force field of the propulsion of that craft, and that knocked him back. So they took him aboard, and they brought him back to life.
He interviewed all those children in Zimbabwe that had a mass sighting, and that one's
crazy.
Very compelling. Very, very, very compelling. Because all these kids have the same story, and he talks to them independently, and they all have the same story.
And then we saw something shiny, so we all ran down over there, and we saw two people. They were in tight black suit, and they had big eyes.
You made a drawing, huh? It looked like this?
No, something like that. I thought they were crazy. I thought they were crazy just coming to our school doing nothing. And all I saw was something like silver coming down.
And we looked up and I thought to myself, that can't be an airplane because it was very shiny. It looked kind of like a cigarette, you know? It was a long thing and then on the end it was all shiny.
If these fucking whistleblowers are telling the truth, we have been visited.
Yeah.
And these kids are telling the truth, which makes way more sense than they're all just lying and they all have the same story.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense. Sure aware of the Jackie Gleason story. The Jackie Gleason was friends with Nixon.
Yep.
They're drinking, and Nixon says, "Hey, you want to see some fucking crazy shit?" And he takes him to whatever Air Force base where they have a downed UFO, and he has access to see this, and he sees alien bodies, and that this is something that the government has always had. You know, there's speculation as to whether or not he really did have that conversation with Nixon, but there's no speculation to the fact that he built a fucking house that looked like a UFO after that happened. And that house is, you know, you look at it, looks like a flying saucer house. If you're going to go deep in the rabbit hole, there's like the grays that everybody talks about, and then there's another thing called the tall whites. The people have described them. They almost look like Scandinavian or something like that, like pale skin. Some alien life is probably, 100,000 years ahead of us, 700,000 years ahead of us, 1,000,000 years ahead of us. But some alien life is probably millions and millions of years ahead of us. They probably don't want to fuck with us anymore. But I bet that intelligence reaches that moment where you can join the intergalactic hive of minds. And the civilization reaches some insane harmony with the very universe itself.
Right.
That's probably where it goes if you don't blow yourself up.